This is 3rd down and 1. At the 2-yard line, a touchdown, walks it off, handoff, Kareem Hunt, right side, powering, he is, give it to him, touchdown, Kansas City, it's a walk-off touchdown by Kareem Hunt, and the Kansas City Chiefs stay undefeated at 8-0, the only unbeaten team in the National Football League. 14 straight wins for the Chiefs Kingdom.
That was Mitch Holthus of WDAF. The Chiefs are inevitable. 30-24 in overtime. Kareem Hunt, he's inevitable. Patrick Mahomes, he's indestructible. He can't get injured. And the Chiefs in overtime, you lose that toss, you're gonna lose. Chiefs stay undefeated. I'm Gregg Rosenthal. This is NFL Daily, and Nick Shook, fresh off writing up the What We Learned on NFL.com. What did you learn, Nick?
I learned what I already knew about the Chiefs offense, which that it's a slow, methodical, grinded-out offense that's going to paper cut you to death. But what I really learned is that occasionally they can impose their will on you up front and just run it down your throats for touchdowns in the biggest moments. We saw that tonight as soon as they won the toss in overtime. You had a feeling it was going to look a lot like that touchdown drive in the fourth quarter, and that's exactly what it ended up looking like.
Yes, and the overtime drive of the Super Bowl and the overtime drive that haunts our producer Eric's nightmares against the Bills and all the overtime drives, as long as they're on offense. Chiefs fans don't like to be reminded of that 2018 AFC Championship overtime. Sorry. I thought the ball control was really interesting tonight. And yes, this Chiefs team isn't as flashy, and we're going to get to some new things, like DeAndre Hopkins was such a big deal. But they had the ball for 83 plays on Monday night. The Bucs, 52. The Chiefs had 28 first downs in this game. They dominated time of possession 40-25. We've seen that a lot, but what I think is different and interesting about this team is a lot of times these comebacks, Nick, have started by running the ball. They were down 17-10 in the fourth quarter of this game. They've actually come back at some point in the game in 7 of their 8 wins. And a lot of times it's the second quarter, it's the third quarter, and they actually come back by running the ball. They didn't run the ball that well in the first half of this game, but they had that drive when they were down a touchdown, and they just got it going, and that interior line is just so good. And on a night where the Bucs pass rushers, I thought, did really well, and I think Todd Bowles had a pretty good game plan defensively, it still didn't matter that the Chiefs get it done.
Yeah, it was interesting that Bowles' approach shifted, and I understand why, because with an offense like this, you can't blitz them to death and force them into mistakes because they're not trying to throw the football down the field. You kind of have to sit back and trust your base rushes, play coverage, and really worry about stopping the run, especially in the second half. So that was a bit of a surprise, but what was more surprising is the fact that the Chiefs were able to still make it work with that happening. And you're right, the pass rushers for the Buccaneers did a good job, especially in the first half. And then you get to the second half, the Chiefs only put 10 points on the board, and they look like they have for most of the season. They're unimpressive. It's the reason that everybody gets on me about putting Patrick Mahomes so high. Oh, he's got more picks than touchdowns, is what they said a couple weeks ago. It doesn't matter because he plays within this offense at an expert level. And the Buccaneers just got a firsthand experience with why he's ranked that high, because he just does it so well. He's almost impossible to stop. Add in Kareem Hunt, who goes over 100 yards, which, by the way, it's great to see Kareem Hunt thriving relatively with the Chiefs again in a different fashion than he used to when he was there before. But you add that in, and suddenly they're that much harder to defend, and it just puts that much more stress on the Todd Bowles defense. And that's how you end up with a drive like they had in the fourth quarter that goes 15 plays, 78 yards, takes 8.5 minutes off the clock. I mean, it was a death march of sorts. Like, they just play by play, I'm just watching them going, oh, they're just getting what they want. None of it's big chunks. It's Mahomes on a bad ankle, throwing to Travis Kelce on third down to convert, which, by the way, 12 for 18 on third down. This is how you win football games when you're not super explosive. This is
it's not how anyone else wins football games. 12 out of 18 on third down.
But what's the difference? The difference is
outrageous.
Patrick Mahomes is the guy is operating this offense, which is why he should be regarded so highly, even if the numbers aren't there.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. He did throw 3 touchdown passes tonight, so now he's finally over the touchdown interception threshold. He's now got 11 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. That's an overrated stat to evaluate quarterbacks. It's okay to have there, but it's not the one thing you need to look at. Look, he went 11 for 13 himself on third downs with 10 first downs, 3 touchdowns. The only third downs that they didn't get, and it's interesting, that overtime drive just felt so inevitable, these short passes and then the run on third and short to finish it. That was a 5-minute, 52-second, 10-play drive. That was actually a drive that was the 4th longest drive of the night by the Chiefs. They had 3 other drives that were longer. An 8-minute, 15-play touchdown drive that gave them the lead in the fourth quarter, a 6.5-minute, 12-play touchdown drive that tied the game, and then a couple 10-plus play drives in the first half, one of which went for 70 yards and a touchdown and took over 6 minutes. So this is who they are. And Troy Aikman said it on the podcast, just like they're an offense that they get into 3rd and 4, they get into 3rd and 6, and if they need 6, they get 7. And literally as he was saying it, they hit a first down just too easy. And Kelsey's funny. I mean, he had 14 catches, tying a career high for only 100 yards. He's averaging like 7.5, 8 yards per catch this season. And normally you see that kind of stat in an old tight end and you say he's washed, but that's just what they need or what they're going to need in this offense because they don't have enough explosive plays. But they do now have DeAndre Hopkins. And just tell me kind of what you saw out of DeAndre Hopkins. He goes 8 for 86 in 2 touchdowns, and this offense just feels different with him in it.
Yeah, it does. What I saw wasn't much different from what I've seen from him before. It's the way they used him that was different. They were moving him around. They were using him within the the restrictions of sorts, or just the bounds of their offense. It wasn't Hopkins going deep, save for that 35-yard catch would set up that touchdown. That was a masterful catch. I mean, that's DeAndre Hopkins as we've always known him to be, catching it in traffic among 2 guys to set up a score. But otherwise, it's short passes, and he's there. He's making the catch. He wins a slant on the goal line. It's a 5-yard touchdown catch that the defender had no chance of stopping. Because imagine, I try to put myself in that defender's shoes in that situation. You're one-on-one on the goal line with DeAndre Hopkins. You know that for the majority of his career, he's running that fade to the back corner of the end zone. But against these Chiefs, it's a different story. So, Aikman's like, you got to drive down and prevent that slant. Well, yeah, what am I going to cheat inside and I'm going to give up the fade that I've seen him catch a million times in his career? No, I'm going to try to react, and I'm a step slow because it's DeAndre Hopkins. So in his first game with them, it was quiet, 2 for 29. They still win the game, obviously, but this was like a bit of a coming out party within the bounds of this offense, in that he can still find a way to make an impact because he's still such a good receiver, and they actually know how to use him, and it gives Patrick Mahomes an option outside of the tight end group, because since they've suffered those losses at receiver, they just haven't gotten much production out of receiver. It's just been all tight end short passes, and now he has another guy to go to that he can lean on consistently that'll really not elevate this offense in terms of explosiveness, but elevate them in terms of options. Now he has other places to look.
He was perfect for tonight. He's his own beater. And that's what they need. And on one hand, it's like, wow, we're adding another slow, big receiver to the Chiefs offense. But he's way better than any of the other options, like a Juju Smith-Schuster whenever he gets healthy. And, they had great chemistry in terms of knowing what the other was going to do on that play that you mentioned. And that play where Mahomes steps into in a completely crowded pocket and throws it despite getting hit into a window that just, you could tell the interview at halftime, Todd Bowles was so frustrated that play even happened. How many times has that happened in the Mahomes era where the coach is just like, I can't believe that happened. All we got to do is knock down that ball, but it's Mahomes. And for a second, I was like, yes, this is the Mahomes we need to see more of, like the making actual magic Mahomes, like exciting Mahomes. And he tried to uncork a deep pass later in the game. I forget, was that one to Watson? And I was like, oh, the old Mahomes is back, but it was overthrown by 4 or 5 yards. But Hopkins gives a guy they can trust at a moment where they can't trust Xavier Worthy. If you watch that Raiders tape last week, he's just making mental error after mental error every week. And then he starts this game by basically giving up 7 points by not knowing where he is on the field with a wide open touchdown, steps out of bounds. Then he gets the ball one other time, and instead of continuing forward on what might have been a doomed trick play, he still stopped his feet and tried to change directions instead of using the speed, and he might have been able to outrun the defender. He's just not making good decisions. Those end up being the only 2 targets he has in the game. So Hopkins comes in and he gives them what they need. They've been a bad red zone team all year, Nick. They're 25th in red zone efficiency coming into tonight. Tonight, 4 for 4. Hopkins has 2 of them. Let's actually listen to Hopkins' second touchdown.
Third down, goal to go at the 5-yard line. 17-17 tie. 4:24 to go in the game. Mahomes calls an audible and backs up behind Creed Humphrey. Here comes a blitz. Quick pass is caught. Near side. Touchdown! Kansas City. DeAndre Hopkins on the quick left side slant. The second time D-Hop has tasted the sweet nectar of the Chiefs Kingdom end zone. And the Chiefs lead 23-17.
The sweet nectar of the end zone. We're finally here.
Nectar.
We're back.
The defender's name is Josh Hazen there. And you can see him, little stutter off the line, breaks inside, makes the catch. He fits in this offense so well because they are so methodical. What I liken them to is a boa constrictor. Just squeezes its adversary to death. That's what they do. And I think that he works perfectly. Like you said, zone beater, finding the soft spots in coverage. That's what the tight ends have been doing. Now you have another guy with a ton of experience and trusty hands to be able to get the job done, working with, arguably the best quarterback on the planet. I just can't see a way in which you stop them. If you know that the deep ball is not there and you're going to try to play defense short, it's still going to be a challenge.
What a trade. And watching DeAndre Hopkins in a good interview after the game with Laura Rutledge of ESPN. I mean, he was so emotional. Like, we think, oh, this is another just win for the Chiefs, but he's been in Siberia for a while now. I mean, those Texans teams he was on early, they were good teams. He was in many meaningful games. He made the playoffs a number of times, was only on 2 teams that actually won a playoff game. But Arizona, that was a pretty dark run. He gets 1 playoff game there. The Titans, as irrelevant as it gets, and he was, almost tearing up, saying words can't describe, what this means to me. I manifested it, with my mom. We talked about this all the time, and I'm just going to stay present in this moment. And then right after that, Travis Kelce's on with Scott Van Pelt, and he just says, like, what a difference having a guy like Hopkins adds to that locker room, especially some of the older guys like Kelce or even a Mahomes, like that he has so much confidence. And then seeing it's like those championship teams that add a little extra player to the mix. I had a not really well thought out tweet, Nick, that the Chiefs are doing the Patriots dynasty in reverse, and they've now reached the 2003 Patriots team. And DeAndre Hopkins, in my mind, in this situation, is Corey Dillon. And they're just this team that's kind of like slugging you out, and it's a really good defense, but the offense is getting better, but it's opportunistic. I don't know if this even makes sense, but they're no longer like the 2007 or 2014 Patriots. They're now in 2003, but however you're going to win. I really think Hopkins has some intangible qualities here that really adds a lot to the season. Should we talk about Todd Bowles? Were you annoyed by Todd Bowles not going for 2? They scored the game-tying touchdown. And yes, Bucks, we're going to, fans, the ones that are out there, like, we're going to give you some flowers. They're showing up every week just about this season, giving great effort. They could have won this game. They get the touchdown with 30 seconds left after a great drive by Baker. Did you think he should have gone for 2? Did you want him to go for 2?
Yeah, definitely. And this is the second time that we've spent a Monday night talking about a Todd Bowles decision at the end of the game that hurt their team in one way or another. Last time it was because Chris Godwin got hurt at the end of the game. They weren't going to win. This time it's conservative approach just to get to overtime against a quarterback and a team that and you just witnessed, by the way, is going to methodically drive down the field and squeeze the life out of you if they win the coin toss. So you essentially leave it up to a coin toss. Not a good call. You have momentum in your favor. You're in Arrowhead. You're on prime time. It's wet. Go for the win, Todd. And I think that, I hate to say this because I think that the Buccaneers obviously have a good chance to battle for this division title with the Falcons. But as it stands right now, when I think about the Buccaneers season in full with half of a season to go, I think about that moment against the Ravens where they lost their top 2 receivers. And I think about tonight as the 2 big flashpoints in this season where you're going to look back and say, that defined our year. It was the decisions made by the coach in those moments that maybe will define our year. And this one, you have to give him a pat on the back because I thought Liam Cohen did a fantastic job as an offensive coordinator of adjusting this offense, knowing he doesn't have the verticality with those receivers anymore, knowing Cade Otton is your best pass catching option, and you have this three-headed attack that combines for less than 100 yards. They each go for like 20-ish apiece. None of them have a really good average. One of them, Sterling Shepard, 2 for 21. Like, they're getting creative to stay alive in the run game, but they adjusted their offense well enough to still find success on a wet night, on the road, against the Chiefs defense that has been known to carry them to Super Bowl victories in the past. They made it a competitive game because of Liam Cohen and his, understanding of Baker Mayfield's strengths and how they can still move the football. So you feel good about that. But at the end of the day, you still lose a game that you could have won against the defending champs, against a team that's undefeated. And now you're 4-5, and you're just like, man, can we get out of our own way?
Right. And how about the Thursday night game against the Falcons? It wasn't necessarily a coaching decision other than just Kirk Cousins eating up their blitz all night. But these are 3 massive games in prime time where you really have a chance, and the margins are so slim, and Todd Bowles is not winning on those margins. And the way he answers the questions after the game annoys me almost more than the decision itself. Let's listen.
We wanted to get it to overtime with the wet conditions on the field. We felt like we had to go into overtime instead of go for 2. So we had our shots. We lost the game.
Did they advise you not to go for 2?
No, we went for 1. We took our shots. We had our chances all game. We just lost the game. It didn't come down to that.
It kind of did. It kind of did. Like
it kind of did. Right?
It never comes down to one play, but you had the chance to win the game right there.
Okay, so that whole sequence was both impressive and frustrating. First of all, half that drive was just Baker Mayfield throwing out routes to Sterling Shepard. Shepard made a couple great catches. Mayfield's timing was really good all night. I've been critical at times of Baker this year. I thought Liam Cohen, as you said, called a really good game. I thought he outcoached Spagnuolo.
Yeah.
It's crazy because the Bucs got way more quarterback hits. They sacked Mahomes 4 times without blitzing, and the Chiefs blitzed quite a bit more, didn't get a lot of pressure on Baker, and there were open receivers, and they moved the ball pretty well. Now, it was an evenly played game. Like I said, the Bucs defense couldn't really get off the field either. They were just dying a slower death. But they did a really good job of coaching, and I think Bowles just hasn't realized this is an offensive team. Go look at the DVOA. Sign up for the FTN subscription over there at FTN Fantasy. The DVOA tells you they're the 27th defense in the league, and they're the number 8 offense in the league. And, they don't have Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. I don't know. They look pretty good the last 2 weeks. They just played quite well against a top 5 defense. This is not just about those receivers. Now, they'll be much better when Mike Evans returns. Unfortunately, they're not going to get Godwin back. But Cade Otton's making great catches. And the offensive line, at this point, there's no way I could come up with 5 offensive lines that are better right now than the Bucs. They weren't perfect tonight, but they play well together. They have enough high draft picks. Everyone's playing well. And so embrace being an offensive team. There were 3 spots in this game where he didn't go for a 4th down conversion or could have been more aggressive. 2 4th down conversions in the 2-point. So right before halftime, there's a 4th and 4 around midfield. It's 30 seconds left. You're in that in-between where you don't want to give the Chiefs a chance, but maybe have a little confidence because you're not going to win just punting the ball away. They punt the ball away. Second half, they don't go for it on 4th and 2. They're at their own 38. I know that's hard for Todd Bowles to wrap his mind around in the year 2024, but they punted away, and the Chiefs are back on that 38-yard line on their way to scoring a touchdown. 8 or 9 plays later, takes them a while, but they get there, they score a touchdown. You're probably not going to stop him anyways. Go get the 2 yards. I promise you can do it. And then at the end of the game, I understood them not going for 2 a little bit more, only because Todd Bowles had already botched the situation by taking a timeout when they got to the 1-yard line on 1st and goal, and Troy Aikman was all over this. You got to let the clock run there. You just gave Mahomes a whole extra possession. If the clock is running there and they end up running that play on 2nd down, let's say with 10 seconds left, then I'd feel more comfortable going for 2. You know that the Chiefs probably aren't going to score anyways. It's even more worth the risk. One thing that you worry about going for 2 is that you can get the 2 and still lose the game with 30 seconds left. So you're almost in between a rock and a hard place. Either way, like, I just don't think it's playing to your strengths. And so it's just very frustrating. And everyone apparently who knows the Bucs better knew he was never going to go for 2 there. Ryan Fitzpatrick tweeted it out like with 2 minutes before they even got to that point. There was like, there's no way Todd Bowles is going for 2.
Yeah, and that's my concern with them going forward, too, is that this is a defensive-minded coach with a defense that doesn't stack up. So for him to force himself out of his traditional ways, which is, all right, let's tie the game and lean on the defense. You can't do that when your strength is your offense, like you just said. And not going for 2 there, I don't care if there was 30 seconds left, if there was 5 seconds left, because this Chiefs offense, while it's Patrick Mahomes still back there, have not shown the explosive verticality of previous years. And yes,
true.
They had 3 timeouts, but it was a wet night. And essentially what you end up doing is forcing them into a position where they have to try to get within Harrison Butker's range on a wet night. Like, that field goal is not guaranteed no matter how good of a kicker he is. So take the chance. Go for the win instead of leaving it up to a coin flip in overtime, which obviously they ultimately lost.
The 2 worst drives of the night by the Chiefs were the last 2 in regulation, where they got 3 and out twice. Once to give the Bucs a ball back, and once again, Baker played well, got that excellent touchdown drive, and then they get it back with 27 seconds left. And man, first of all, the Bucs did the thing where they just kicked it and gave them ball at the 30. I'm annoyed by that each and every week. But Mahomes almost threw the ball away there a couple times. One time, Antoine Winfield almost made a great play on the ball. Could have intercepted it, and the Chiefs' undefeated season would be over. But it's not over, partly because Patrick Mahomes is doing crazy things like creating space, as he does, drawing defenders up to come after him in the red zone, and then throwing a touchdown to Samaje Perine on a play that he got injured. Let's listen to the call, and then we're going to listen to Patrick Mahomes talking about the injury right after that.
Hopkins goes in motion, left to right. Tight wing right side. Mahomes on 3rd down and goal to go. Now we'll scramble to the right side. Now he'll flip it late, and it's caught. Touchdown! Kansas City, and Mahomes is down. Mahomes is down on all 4s as he flipped the ball forward to Samaje Perine for a touchdown. Kansas City, but at what price?
I was obviously running for the goal line, was about kind of committed to running the football, and at the last second saw Samaje, and so kind of awkwardly rolled the ankle a little bit. Definitely scary. I think it hurt more just because it's the same ankle I rolled last week. So it scared me a little bit, but once I kind of took my breath and kind of calmed down a little bit, ended up being not too bad. We were able to go in there, kind of get the respat, and go back on the football field.
Shout out to Eric Roberts behind the glass, having a great week after this Dodgers championship. I mean, we didn't plan that ahead, that you're going to do those 2 in a row. He gets the injury talk during the show. That was like him being Mahomes, flipping the ball at the last second to Samaje Perine. So thank you for that, Eric. Good job. And yeah, I guess Mahomes, he's indestructible, Nick.
Yeah, it just takes me back to the Super Bowl a couple years ago when he's got this bad ankle and everybody's worried about his ankle, and then all of a sudden he takes off for a long run to set up we know how that game ends, the holding call and the field goal and everything else. It's just like, this guy can be hobbled, and he can have foot issues going into games. He can have ankle issues going into games. And that's, you roll the inside of the ankle, it kind of freaks you out because it's an unnatural movement. And yet he just bounces right back and leads. There was a sequence in the next drive where he scrambles forward, and I'm like, oh God, he's going to run on that ankle. And then he immediately finds Travis Kelce for a first down. And I'm just like, man, this guy, whether he's an indestructible or superhuman, I don't know, but I would hate to be coaching defense against him.
Yeah, and he's playing better. And it's okay to say that Patrick Mahomes can play better. These guys aren't just robots. Hall of Famers, the best of all time. Tom Brady has good games, bad games. There's ups and downs within all of his seasons and throughout his career. The last 2 weeks leading into this game, I thought were probably the best 2 games of his season, maybe week 1 against the Ravens. And then this was another excellent game by him too. So I think Mahomes was playing at a lower level, even if he shouldn't have been. I'm not saying he should have been ranked that low on QB index, but I do think he's playing better now. And that's great news for Chiefs fans, as if they need more.